What's going on, guys? It's Alex Miner coming at you with a breakdown of everything that happened last night with UFC Fight Night Moncton in Canada with Anthony Smith and Oezdemir at the top. Before I get to the main event, which was a very interesting fight, I just wanted to go over some of the other highlights of the night. One of the first fights that was really interesting and high level was Don Madge versus Tay Edwards. I believe Don Madge, this was his debut in the UFC. He's a South African fighter, and he came in and definitely put on an impressive performance. In the second round of the fight, he came out backing Tay Edwards into the fence with good striking, threw a left high kick that Tay Edwards blocked mostly, but he only blocked with one forearm, so he still took a lot of the force through the forearm despite him blocking it. He was obviously badly hurt afterwards. He was just leaning to the left side as he retreated, was relying heavily on the fence to keep him on his feet, and Don Madge cut off the cage, landed a right high kick, and knocked him the hell out. It was a great performance, and it's definitely going to get him some more fights in the UFC, to say the least. So, great performance by Don Madge. Another great fight of the night, we had Calvin Kattar versus Chris Fishgold. Chris Fishgold is a Cage Warriors champion. I believe this was his first fight in the UFC. Had a decent amount of hype behind him. He had a lot of high expectations. However, Calvin Kattar is a very tough puzzle. He always comes out, performs, and wins. Calvin Kattar is just a winner, very high-level striker. Even when he goes up against guys that you think might be able to outstrike him, he finds a way to find his opening and capitalize, and that's exactly what happened this time. Fishgold came out aggressive, obviously looking for a first round knockout to make a statement in his debut. He was landing hard and often a lot. However, Calvin Kattar just remained calm and focused and patient, and eventually he caught Fishgold with a 1-2. The 2 caught him a little bit above the ear, dropped him, and he jumped down into his guard and pounded him out until the referee stepped in. So you got another great performance by Calvin Kattar. He's going to need some hot top 15, top 10 opponents here pretty soon, because he continues to perform and get big finishes every time we see him out there in the octagon. Another great fight of the night, it was Misha Cirkunov versus Zach Cummings. I think it's Zach, but whichever. Very good fight, very good performance by Misha Cirkunov. He's coming off 2 losses, 2 first-round knockouts from Oezdemir and from Glover Teixeira. However, this time it looked like he definitely cleaned up his hands. As soon as Cummings tried to come in and close the distance, he landed a flurry of hard hooks, and obviously made Cummings tentative to get into striking range with him, so he immediately shot and tried to go for a takedown. Cirkunov was defending well for a long period of time, maybe like a whole minute or so, until finally he reversed the position and landed in Cummings. He landed in full mount on Cummings, and almost immediately Cummings put up his elbow, trying to keep Cirkunov from landing strikes, I assume, and Cirkunov immediately dug his head under that shoulder and secured the head and arm lock, moved to the side, flattened out, and Cummings had no option but to tap, because otherwise he would have been going to sleep. Cirkunov is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's one of the best Jiu-Jitsu practitioners in the light heavyweight division, and he's just super strong, so not a guy that you can just sit there and let wrench on your neck. But yeah, big win for Cirkunov. He called out Oezdemir after the fight, saying he wants that rematch. So we'll see if he gets that fight next. But yeah. Then in the co-main event, of course, we had Artem Lobov versus Michael Johnson. Interesting fight. Didn't go quite the way I thought it would. As he always does, Artem Lobov was pressuring the entire time, steadily walking forward, never really took a step back. In the first round, he was landing a lot of leg kicks as he backed Michael Johnson down, whereas Michael Johnson was just more focused on like staying out of the way, being elusive, was landing jabs to the body every now and then. Would come up top with the two every now and then as well, but mainly focusing on the body shots and just staying on his bite. In the second round, Artem Lobov continued to apply pressure to him. However, Michael Johnson started to stand his ground a little bit more. He was steadily moving, but every time Artem Lobov would push too close, he would just land with big shots to the body and head, and didn't really deter Lobov too much, but it backed him off enough to where he would stop pressuring so hard. So I'd give that second round to Johnson. First round I would have given to Lobov. And then the third round, Michael Johnson didn't really step back at all. He was just standing in Artem Lobov's space. Like I said, still landing, ripping hard to the stomach and to the head with big punches. And to close the fight, he landed a big takedown. So at the end of the fight, I was pretty sure it was 2 rounds for Michael Johnson and 1 for Artem Lobov, and Michael Johnson got the unanimous decision. As I said in the breakdown before the fights, Artem Lobov has a great chin. I thought that Michael Johnson might be able to mitigate that chin with his power, as he's done so many times in the 55 division. However, I think we're seeing that Michael Johnson's power may not carry the same down to the 145 division. It could be Artem Lobov's toughness is what kept it in there, but I just feel like Michael Johnson's power isn't the same at that weight. And then finally, we had the main event between Oezdemir and Anthony Smith. I said before this fight that Oezdemir didn't seem to have too much striking technique, but we saw a lot of it in this fight. He was actually being a little more patient than usual. He didn't come out basically sprinting in and just trying to land big shots and get the fight over with. Although he was being aggressive and throwing with terrible intentions every time he threw. He's just being, like I said, a lot more measured in his approach, but he was landing a good amount, landing hard, great lead hooks, just big shots up top. Anthony Smith, on the other hand, was being a lot more tentative. He was obviously worried about the power of Oezdemir, as Oezdemir does have power in spades. Yeah, basically it seemed throughout this fight that Anthony Smith was more focused on the long game and going to wait for Oezdemir to basically blow his load, tire himself out, which later on would bear fruit, which you would think it would, considering Ozdemir's kind of balls to the wall style that he has in the first several rounds. In fact, I think Oezdemir hasn't really even been to a third round in the UFC, so that says a lot about his style, and seeing as we haven't seen him in those later rounds, you don't know how well he performs in them. In the second round, Anthony Smith started to pick it up. He starts to pick Oezdemir apart on the feet. He landed a flurry of straight punches that drove Oezdemir back to the fence and definitely looked like he had him dazed at first. However, in the second half of that round, Oezdemir gets a big takedown, controls, even gets Anthony Smith's back at one point, and just lands hard shots whenever he gets a chance to. Anthony Smith defended pretty well, kept from getting hit too hard. However, any small amount of space with Oezdemir can spell a knockout. This is a guy who can just generate crazy force from very small windows of space. But yeah, he managed to survive that round, and then in the third round, Anthony Smith, they both came out trading big punches. However, Smith eventually gets a good takedown, secures the back mount, and gets a body lock in. And he goes for a rear naked choke on one side. He almost had Oezdemir out of there, but at the last second, Oezdemir yanked off the arm, the securing arm, and managed to stay in it. But Smith just switched positions, got the other arm in, locked it in, and Oezdemir had no chance but to tap. Anthony Smith gets the biggest win of his career, and it looks at this point that the only fight for him should be the winner of Jones and Gustafsson, or the winner of that fight and DC whenever he comes back down. He could fight maybe Ilir Latifi in the meantime while all that's going down, because we can only assume that the winner of Jones versus Gustafsson is definitely going to fight DC, and knowing the Lionheart, he's probably not going to want to wait that long. He's not really the type of fighter that is going to wait around on the biggest opportunity because he doesn't want to take risks. Anthony Smith is definitely the fighter's type of fighter that will go out there and fight anybody because he wants to prove that he's the best, and he's up for any type of fight. He's up for the biggest challenges. However, at this point, he just beat the number 2 guy, so couldn't blame him for wanting to wait to get his championship shot, because he definitely deserves it. He just beat 2 former champions and the biggest contender aside from Gustafsson, all in a matter of 1 year, less than a year, I believe. This guy's been tearing through the division, and he definitely deserves this shot. However, like I said, we'll see what happens. There's already some stuff going back and forth between him and Jones. Somebody asked Jones how he felt about Anthony Smith's performance, and he said it was okay. And Anthony Smith's like, you're obviously watching me and are worried about me if you're watching me. So, but yeah, he only has room to go up now. Like I said, he could take the fight against Ilir Latifi. That's the only guy I could see fighting him for a title eliminator. However, Latifi hasn't fought in a while. But yeah, we'll see how it all plays out after the Jones and Gustafsson fight. But things are looking great right now for Anthony Smith. So yeah, good fights, guys, and hope y'all enjoyed them. Hope y'all enjoyed the commentary and the content. Thanks. Have a good one.